Another week begins. It's Monday, October 3rd. I've seen, I haven't really, I haven't really dove into some of the astrological prognostications that I see other astrologers, tickling the edges of reality with for this month of October unfolding yet. However, my sensing is from the titles that they give to their considerations that there's concern about what's coming down the pike. We'll put it that way. And, maybe I have a jaded perspective on what it is that the planets offer us. I think that's probably a good way to put it, because I don't have a tendency to lean, even remotely in a minor fashion into the negative side of life. And I often get this sensing that the factors at play in the human drama that we are about can skew the perspectives of those of us tuning into the astrological planetary dance moves in a style that doesn't always lean appropriately into the balance. And I think we're right now in Libra, but the balance between what is planetarily at work and what is stimulating the human dance moves that are taking place. And I'm less inclined to put the onus of what is transpiring here on the earthly plane onto the planetary dance or the celestial experience that's going on all the time. Because the planets have very little in the way of desire to, place us into challenging experiences. And yet, our human, what should we call it, penchant has definitely taken a substantial aim at not placing us in the easiest or best context of how to get along with one another or tune into the natural unfolding of the life process. It's not the planet's fault. We have, in one sense, wandered afield from a very dynamic and natural flow of life energy processes that do not intentionally go out of their way to challenge us. That is much more of an effect of the choices that we have made and continue to make along the way that are not easily portrayed in alignment with what it is that we as soul beings incarnated currently on planet Earth to accomplish. Now, that being said, we should glance here at the astrology for the week. Here's the chart for today. I do them for 8 o'clock in the morning Pacific time because that's close enough for the initiation of a day to consider, particularly for us on the West Coast. When I was writing down my notes as to what's transpiring for the month coming ahead, we're going into our eclipse season, but that's not till later on, till the end of the month. One of the factors in play that I saw this week was that Pluto, which has been for the last, how many months? Let's see, it went retrograde on in April, near the end of April, is going to go redirect its path forward this week. That's probably the major aspect to ponder. And part of the reason is because a lot of the, let's call them dreary outlooks that are leaned into by folks get their underpinning from not appreciating what it is that Pluto can represent, as opposed to the misnomers and that death quality that lingers always kind of in, is it the periphery or is it actually more at the core of what Pluto stands for, and how onerous a version of the death experience do we carry? Have we been programmed to tune into, as opposed to seeing it as part of the natural process of the life experience? Our body, 50 trillion cells, altering and changing and being reborn all the time, are tuned into this plutonic cycle. I'm not talking about Pluto going direct right now. I'm talking about the death rebirth cycle. Our cells rejuvenate themselves all the time. This is a plutonic signature. It happens at all levels of the living experience. Something is done, it's served its purpose, and it's time to release it. Let it go so that there is room for something new to be born. That's all that the death cycle is. Providing that opportunity for something, dynamic and new to find space within ourselves, to be present. In order for that to transpire, however, oftentimes something needs to be let go of. This is Pluto's function. It's it's that furthest out planet, and I'm not taking in any of the Kuiper Belt bodies in my considerations, but those furthest out planet in our solar system that, bounces or bounced back and forth in the scientific community as to, is it or is it not one of our planets? Oh, it's so far out there, we don't even, the only fact that we know about it is because of science. So as a scientist, we've got a responsibility to make the call. And what call do they say? Oh, planet Pluto is not a planet at all. It's just a hunk of, celestial debris floating around. Oh, if they only knew the dynamics of the intensity of what Pluto actually means, as opposed to just giving it that dead, inert quality of a rock in space. Oh, if they only could touch into the astrological depth of awareness. So there is quite definitely an uncomfortableness that surfaces whenever Pluto's involved, and part of that is because our understanding of and willingness to embrace the full gamut of the living experience has been curtailed with tales of woe, destruction, and death. And yet, it's part of the natural cycle. Mind you, our human plight really, stirs that plutonic cauldron of awareness just a little bit askew from what could be possible should we recognize the opportunities that ever so slow moving a planet, Pluto, brings for our consideration. The speeds of the planet have a lot to do with the weight that they carry in the astrological consideration process. And Pluto moves really, really slow, maybe 2 to 3 degrees a year. And that's because it goes forward and backward, that retrograde and direct motion process that it apparently takes as we here on the third rock from the sun whip around the sun, every year and stuff. And Pluto, it takes about 250-ish years to make one loop around this solar dance experience. So anywhere that Pluto is, those 2 to 3 degrees of movement a year forward and backward are going to carry some weight. And it's been, since 2008, that's not just yesterday, it's been dancing through the zone of Capricorn, asking us to, really ponder the potential meaning of how is the realm of rulership, leadership, the acumen of business supposed to function. And in a plutonic sense, what's always on the table is, are you willing to let go of things that are not functioning in their best possible ways so that you can make the room for something, more appropriate to put in an appearance? Long footprint Pluto carries. And this week, it's going to finish up that retrograde dance. It's in those last, few degrees of Capricorn before next year it's going to move into Aquarius. I'm an Aquarius, and I've heard other people say, oh, Aquarius is going to come under the gun and stuff next year and stuff. And it's kind of like, yeah, but I'm willing to allow those uh, places within me. I think that's really a key factor whenever we consider these longer, slower moving moments of the celestial dance. How does it encumber my world? Have I been holding on to, I'm an Aquarius, have I been holding on to in a fixed fashion? Because Aquarius is a fixed sign. We get, set in our ways when they work effectively to say, that works so well, I'm going to continue with it. And next year, as Pluto moves into Aquarius, it's almost like right away going to dance on my moon at 2 degrees. It's kind of like, those are my feelings. And it's going to say, have I tuned into the possibility that perhaps my feelings are not functioning in the most appropriate fashion? And perhaps it's time to discard some of those fixed ideas that I might have as to that realm of sensation, to allow for something new to put in an appearance, new levels of sensation. And, Pluto, the farthest out planet in our solar system, it's not about those interplanetary, the Mercury, the Venus, the Mars kind of things that are the daily type considerations. This is the long footprint. Where is how tuned into sensations that are seeping through from the farthest reaches of our solar system, wanting to make an appearance within me, to change my attitude about what it is that I sense, to really tune into more. I think that's a key to consider here with Pluto. Anyway, that's getting a little bit further afield. This is next year. It's coming, indeed. And we should all be aware that our Aquarius part, that ability to tune into group energy, the hopes and wishes, these are all, Aquarian kind of things. The scientific ability to invent things, our capacity to create an inspirational infusion of newness in things that just, it's there. That's what Aquarius brings in. It's coming onto the plate or onto the table for us next year to say, how inventive do I want to be? There's opportunities for different kinds of innovation that may appear. Are we going to be ready for it? It's Pluto, after all. It's not something that's going to just come in and say, hey, I got an idea. I think I'm going to make something happen. Are you ready? Oh, no, no, no. It's more like, I'm here. You may or may not like it. But depending on your willingness to let go of those things that do not work, this will be epitomal to what is going to transpire. Dang, I got off on a tangent there. Anyway, the first thing that I saw when I looked at this work was, oh yes, Mercury down here in Virgo. It's going direct now, so we're no longer in that Mercury retrograde cycle. Moves into a really nice trine to Pluto up here. Since we're talking about Pluto, Mercury, how we communicate, our thoughts, and here I am uh, contemplating this Thursday consideration of how do my thoughts tune into specifically opportunities that Pluto would bring to the table for me to think out of the box, think differently. Yes, from that Virgo analytical, organized perspective, but about what? Is it about that Capricornian zone of influence? And right now, we here in the United States are in that, what should we call it? The twilight phase of our election process midterms, where the oh God, what should we call them? The spin of what it is the politicians are trying to get us to think about is everywhere, and it's overtly unfortunate that the political realm seems to be more than slightly alienated from the everyday life of what it means to be a human on planet Earth. There's the every the attempt, we'll call it an attempt to spin a tale that says that I can make your life better. All you have to do is put me in charge. Well, I don't know about you, but in charge of my life, I don't think that anybody other than me needs to be there. Is there a level of trust? We've seen the political experience unwind itself for a long, long time. Tales spun in this direction and in that direction, and yet, I don't know about you, but I'm not really perceiving that there is a level of innate understanding of the connection between what it is that we humans do and what it is that the planet that we live on can support. I could go off, I majored in economics going to university, and I could go off on a long spin there about, what is the underpinnings of why we're in this theoretical inflation thing. I'm not going to go there because that could use up a lot of time, and I don't think it would make our lives any better to be aware of what the reality of why that is, which is essentially it's our demand, our Western demand for the cheap life. It's caught up with us. It's no longer as available as it was because everybody in the planet wants what we want. They've always wanted it. They're willing to work for it much less than what we in America are willing to. We are pricing ourselves, we have priced ourselves out of the market to such an extent. The cost of everything is increasing, will continue to. We have to learn to want less. And until we get there, we're going to be in a world of hurt. So Thursday's trine between Mercury and Pluto, it's an opportunity to, particularly to not necessarily to tune in at the Mercury level, but to tune in at the Plutonic level. And the reason I say that is because on the very next day, see this little red S down here below Pluto? That means that it's completing its retrograde cycle. It's stationing retrograde. And if I go just one more day, you see that's turned white? So 26 degrees, 6 minutes is the degree and minute where Pluto has changed directions. It's stopped essentially. And whenever a planet goes into or out of retrograde, it gets to this place where it stations. And when a planet stations, it's at its strongest. It's holding a focus on a particular degree of the zodiac. And that degree of the zodiac becomes vital in being able to tune into what is it that if I desired to really focus in on what I'm being asked by the planetary essence, by this planetary being to tune into. I use a system of the Sabian symbols put together by Mark Edmund Jones and a psychic in Balboa Park, San Diego, back in about 1915, and then reinterpreted by Dane Ridger, a very dynamic astrologer from the early 20th century, into a book called An Astrological Mandala. You can see my book is a little well worn. I've been using it for a lot of years. The degrees of the zodiac, 360 of them, can be seen as divination moments to tune into just what exactly does that Sabian symbol for a particular degree of the zodiac have to offer into the consideration of whatever the planetary factor in play is attempting to awaken us to. So this degree where Pluto is stationing, it's been there for a long time, for, the last several weeks. But it comes to point this Saturday as it stations. The degree symbol reads, pilgrims, climbing the steep steps leading to a mountain shrine. And the keynote is the ascent of the individualized consciousness to the highest realizations reached by the spiritual leaders of its culture. One has to ponder there. Do I sense that the leaders, the cultural leaders around the globe, this is not just the United States I'm considering here, are aiming for the highest spiritual parameters that would benefit both mankind and this planet that we live on? Does it feel like that is the case? There are a few exceptions on the planet where the leaders are quite dynamic and tuned into this larger perspective beyond the wants and desires of the human greed level. But not that many. They're still playing the power and control game. Power over not power with, control of others, not control of self. This is not a yes, no type consideration. This is a essay, ponderable. Something to really tune into and meditate upon. Am I, are we appropriately abreast of what might benefit both humanity and this planet? As we're talking about Pluto here, the slowest moving of our celestial dancing planets, you have to tune into this energy signature that is radiating down throughout the celestial grid in a fashion to touch every aspect of what it means to be alive. And not in a minor way, because Pluto doesn't touch things in a minor way. And this trine that's happening between our communication vehicle, Mercury, and this Pluto is saying, now that we're out of Mercury retrograde, what do I think? And perhaps want to converse about that is related to this larger level of awareness. Am I on board with the allowing of those things that are no longer viable to be released, to be composted back into the elements of this earth plane? Because that is exactly what happens to everything that is in the physical realm. It gets composted. You just have to ask yourself, is it being done willingly? Or are people fighting tooth and nail to keep it from transpiring? This is the main consideration for this week. We've gotten up to Saturday already, and you can see I've only talked about that one main plutonic factor that's in play. On this day, Sunday of this week, you can kind of see the moon here at 19 degrees of Aquarius, the sun here at 16 degrees of Libra. Well, the sun moves a degree a day. The moon moves 2 degrees a degree every 2 hours. So if we just want to go back 3 hours, which would be 3 degrees, which would be 6 hours. So very early on Sunday morning is a full moon. Full moon. This is a factor that it's worth a consideration. This will be happening there at 16 degrees of Aries. The Sabian symbol, I'm going to throw this in right off the bat. The Sabian symbol for that particular degree of the zodiac, where this full moon, maximum reflected light from the sun, saying, and the question comes, I've set an intention, which was set back at the new moon that happened in Virgo. Oh no, the last new moon happened at 4 degrees of Libra, right? 4, 12. No, that doesn't make sense. But early Libra. I'm going to have to look that one up, make sure that I'm all right. Ba-doop, 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 ba-doop. New moon, yes, 3 degrees Libra. Gave us the task, we'll call it a task, to engage with others. Do the investigation process of what does it mean to spend time, and I'm not talking about just, clicking off marks on a clock. I'm talking about energy connection with others or an other. This is the realm of Libra. And this full moon in Aries, Aries is self, that impulse, that drive to accomplish something. So this full moon in that Aries cycle across from the sun in Libra is, it may get us excited to do something. After all, it is Aries. Anyway, Sabin Simple reads 2 dignified spinsters sitting in silence. And the keynote, the ability to transform a natural lack of potency into poise and inner serenity. I don't know about you, but grasping a level of inner serenity while the Aryan drive to just do something, anything, I don't see that as a overtly relaxed and comfortable zone to meditate upon. From the perspective of what it means to tune into and live our Western culture human dance moves. And yet, can we find that zone of influence that rotates in a spiralic fashion, drawing us further up the line of life unfoldment into higher consciousness, and in that, be content with our placement along that trajectory. That is the challenge of this Sunday full moon. That is all the aspects that I'm going to cover for this week. These 2 characters that I have dancing on either side of my head are what happened when someone cut into this stone. And I saw it when I was down at a Tucson gem and mineral show years ago, because I don't get down to that part of the world that often. And when I saw it, I went, oh my God, look at that. 2 dancing shamans. Or it could be seen as these are the Fae. These are the natural beings. A lot of people say, oh, the Fae is the fairies. Well, most people's vision of fairies is more along the lines of pixies. And pixies and fairies are not the same. The Fae, the fairies, these are natural beings that are made up of the growing elements of the green world and earth. And they really don't go out of their way to engender the version of human portrayal. And they don't really care about humanity that much because humanity turned our back on them a long, long time ago. But these are natural beings. And when I saw these as dancing shamans or fae, either one, this is a signature of a discipline that is far more in tune and in touch with what it means to be created out of the elements of earth. And for us humans, imbued with soul awareness. This will take you a long ways in why it is we came to earth. It isn't just to have things. It's to share. Share with others, not just human, but all of life. The flying beings of the air, the creepy crawlies of the earth, they're all made up of the same physical energies. Our soul is an energy signature that our physical being resides within. There's another meditation moment for you. How tuned in are you to your soul awareness? That's all for this week. See y'all next week. And the term that came to mind as I was contemplating some of the presentation opportunities some other astrologers are offering for this month ahead was misgiving. And my inclination is to be very conscious and cautious with trying to give a perspective that leans just a little too heavily into the challenges that we are facing and will face. Because as a soul being, this is what I signed up for. This is what we all signed up for. It's not necessarily going to be easy, but we have a resilience at our soul level to do things most of us don't even have a consciousness of. Another thought for you to think about as we go through this week, and Pluto knocks on our door and says, "Are you ready to grow? Make room for what it is that I am bringing." Ciao for now.